Welcome to another good start. Oh my gosh, let's try this again. Welcome to another episode of Blending the Family, the podcast. Ooh, can you say a couple glasses of wine? Thought you could. Just came back from dinner and, oh my gosh, I had barbecue. It was really good. Even here in California, it was good. Let me just mention our guest on the show is Frank Colson. Who? Frank Colson. Come on. Check him out on Facebook. Find Frank on Facebook. Frank Colson. Colson. Frank's a coworker of mine, and he was telling me his life story, and I almost sat there and cried. And Frank didn't know me from Adam. I just met him these past couple weeks, and he was telling me his story, and we're going to talk about that. But let me give you a heads up what's going on. Duke, our family chocolate lab, he's doing well. I talked to my wife Ann tonight on the phone, and by the way, I learned what Thursdays are now called. Well, not now, but somebody's called it Friday Junior. So welcome to Friday Junior when I'm recording this. But I talked to my wife Ann, and she said Duke just wanted to go out every couple hours last night. And all I could think was, thank God I'm here in California. So I just mentioned, I had barbecue for dinner. Let me see if I can remember. I think it was called Wood Creek. Whipping out the receipts here. Wood Ranch here in Valencia, California. Where am I going to put the receipts? I'll put them right there. All right. Anybody call me on my work phone? Oh, good. Dinner was really good. I had pulled pork and brisket. The brisket was really good. It was probably one of the non-southern places I've been to. Brisket was really good. I was in Kentucky last week? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. And I had barbecue there, and they're God dang, they give you a lot of food at that barbecue place. I can't remember. I don't know if you've been paying attention. I think this is episode 104, I think. I don't know. I can't keep track. You know what? I can look it up because on my iPhone, I have my podcast app, and I have my own podcast, and I want to see what number we're at. Oh, I guess 103. This is 103. All right. Episode 103. And I've been trying, and I've been doing very well of working out. So I've been getting up early. I go to the gym, and I run. Tuesday was, again, about 20 minutes. Need to acclimate myself. I'm old. And the altitude back in home, north of Denver, it messes me up. It's been messing me up for years. But, so on Tuesdays, past couple weeks, I've been doing 20 minutes. And then on Wednesdays, I've been doing about 30. But yesterday I did 40. Plus, when I get done, I do my 20 push-ups. And on Tuesday, it was awesome. I'm sorry, I'm going to humble brag. But it was awesome. And that's my phone's going off real quick. Jeff. Oh, hi, Jeff. And I cranked out 20 push-ups right away. And I'm starting small, trying to do 20 push-ups. But then today I got up, and I stretched a little, and I felt a pop. Oh, gosh, my back. My back is so fucked up. It's not even funny anymore. So I didn't do anything today. And I walked to the restaurant, and let me just see what my total is. Excuse me. Had some Pinot Noir. I love Pinot. So I'm just over 5,000 steps today. That's pretty pathetic. Yesterday was 11,000. But that's okay. A minor setback. Got up, felt the pain, but I took popped some aspirin, and I was fine the rest of the day. So just played it cool. I'm going to still get up tomorrow and try to run. Definitely try to run. And doing the push-ups, been working out. So I don't know if I'll end up losing any weight this week because I have really weird eating habits. I try and eat healthy, but I don't eat a lot. And tonight I had dinner. And usually the past couple weeks I don't eat dinner. I'll have breakfast and I'll have lunch because I've been going to lunch with my cohorts. And today we were recording the podcast at the day job, which is a car dealership. And you will hear vacuuming at one point. And Frank is like, he's giving me the signal to stop. And I'm like, Frank was on a roll. He was doing really well, and I didn't want to stop the recording. So I apologize. You will hear vacuuming in the background. You might hear some of the music as well from the dealership, but I apologize for that. Okay, so let's talk about Frank. Frank's story is he owned about 10 years ago. He owned his own car dealership, and this is back in 2008. And as I say, 2008. If you're not familiar, that's when all hell broke loose in the financial world. I was very blessed at that time. Well, I was going through my divorce at the time. However, I was able to get a really good deal on a townhome back then. So even though a lot of people lost a lot of money, I got a nice townhome. But Frank owned a car dealership, and that's when being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, he was at the highest of the highs, and then again when 2008 hit, the lowest of the lows. And so the backstory was Frank was telling me the story. It was just, he and I were just sitting in one of these offices at this brand new car dealership. He was, again, telling me his life story. And I was just so compelled to say, Frank, stop. We need to record this. We need to put this on the podcast. Because not only does he talk about what it was like being a business owner and making sure his employees were paid, but as a husband, as a father, going through that traumatic experience and what his faith brought to him as far as going through that epic journey. You also hear Frank talk about the stormtroopers coming. Not in a good way. Well, I mean, even in Star Wars, stormtroopers, unless you're on the dark side, then that's a good thing. And then something else we touched about, and that was teaching our kids the world of adversity. And you'll hear that a lot when Frank tells you his story about how, not only how he dealt with it, but how the whole family came together and pulled up their bootstraps to survive, literally survive. So there you go. I do want to mention on this episode of 103, last night, because I'm rarely on Facebook, rarely. And I saw an instant message from my dad. Hi, Dad. Love you, man. And he said, hey, I just got another friend request from you. And right then and there, I knew that my Facebook account had been hacked. So what did I do? I deactivated the Facebook account. So blending the family and my dad's advice at 5:04 a.m. and my account are all gone. I'm done with Facebook. Done. I didn't even announce it on Facebook. I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done. So yeah, no more Facebook, but you can still find, once I put it on the phone, Instagram, Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's the Tommy Maloney. And I got to tell you a pet peeve of mine before we get into the interview with Frank. And that is, please stop sending me requests. I get, friend requests in LinkedIn to be on the podcast. Stop doing that, please. It's one of my pet peeves. You don't know when people send me, hey, I think I'd be a great guest. Listen to my podcast, okay? Listen to the podcast. Tell me an episode you listened to, and then we'll talk. Don't just say, hey, I think I'd be a great guest when you don't deal with the world of family, blended family, parenting. So please, if you know anybody that wants to be on the podcast, don't tell them to send me a friend request on LinkedIn. There you go. All right. But speaking of Facebook, we'll talk about Frank again. Find Frank Colson on Facebook. He's awesome. He reminded me of my dad because the running joke with my dad is he lives in Chicago, just on the outskirts of downtown. I mean, walking distance. And but a lot of people call him the mayor of Michigan Avenue because everybody knows him. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him too. So there you go. So Frank is just like that. He's just a funny guy. And Frank reminds me of the scene. I'm actually going to play that scene for you. And then we'll go into the interview. The scene in Analyze This with Billy Crystal when he has to represent De Niro at that meeting. But this is Frank. This is Frank. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing, caring. And as my good friend Terry Crews would say, your success is my success.
Who I am? Who I am? Who am I? Who am I is a question for the ages. That's one we're all searching for to find out who I am, who's in there, who wants to come out and go, hey, I'm hungry. Who I am is too deep and almost, you gotta go in deep and pull out the thing, like with that movie where the thing came out of the stomach and ate up the people on the fucking spaceship. May they rest in peace. My name is Ben Sobel Leone. Ben Sobel Leone. I'm also known as Benny the Groin, Sammy the Schnoz, Elmer the Fudd, Tubby the Tuba, and once as Miss Phyllis Levine. But that was at a party. It was years ago. I smoked at the Tibet, and I had a quackalud, and then suddenly I'm in fishnets and singing show tunes. These things happen, but it has nothing to do with what I'm here with you fine gentlemen today. So I apologize. That being said, I'm also known to the people who know me the best as the fucking doctor.
Are you going to edit it? Is that what's going to happen? Or what's going to happen?
Edit what?
Whatever we do, whatever we come up with.
Depends. I mean, I try a lot of, this is why they're really good podcasters, do a lot of editing, but they also have like a staff. I don't have a staff. I don't even have a baseball bat.
You got a hotel room and a plug.
Yeah, but I don't have a staff. I don't have a team. It's just me.
Oh, you mean like people staff?
Yeah. That's why I said I don't have a baseball bat staff. You know. Come on, Frank, work with me.
I was going down that direction. Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay. So here's why we're here, Frank.
Why are we here?
Well, I think it was Nietzsche that actually had that thought. Why are we here? I don't know. But your compelling story, when you and I were talking the other day about going from owning a business, owning a car dealership business, and was this 2008? Is that when this all happened?
In regards to it all falling apart?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, so when the whole financial bubble burst.
That's right.
But I found it really fascinating because, I mean, not only talking about, because a lot of the listeners are business people, entrepreneurs, but they're also parents.
Correct.
And
correct.
The whole thing, like, and we'll get into it, but what you told me about putting the kids on the couch, telling them we've lost it.
Right. Yeah. Tom, it was quite an experience when you find yourself in a situation where you're losing everything, and you realize that you are losing everything, and it's because of the fact that maybe you didn't make the right decisions moving up to that point. Yes, the newspapers and the TV and the radio and everything was saying that, we're having a mortgage meltdown like the which nobody's ever seen. And, my business was failing. And, you look at yourself and you can't help but be introspective. And you look and you say, well, did I not put enough money away to weather this storm? How severe of a storm is this? And then you find that day that you need to let your family know. Because your family is everything to you. And it's funny how it circles back to your family. And the whole time you've been trying to, get through in life and make it happen for your family. But then you come back to find out you might be living under a bridge.
So take us back. Take us to you had a car dealership.
Right. So I've had an illustrious career in the automotive industry and all kinds of promotional aspects to, just being a car salesman, a sales manager. And then I was fortunate enough to open up my own car dealership, a small used car lot that sold about 100 cars a month. That's
still a lot.
Some may say that's a lot, and we did become publicly held, and we had AC Green from Los Angeles Lakers as our spokesperson. If you know who he was an unbelievable athlete and Ironman and Laker legend. Mm-hmm. And he came and gave a car away for us. And so long story short, you have it from about 2005. You build it up from the ground up. You build it from nothing, really, a dirt lot. You put your heart, blood, sweat, and tears into. You hear that from everybody. They always say that, blood, sweat, and tears. Well, I literally climbed underneath the building and, helped with the piping and did everything I could to get that thing up and running, to get the conditional use permits, got the dealership up and running, was making really good money for, until the economy crashed. Right. And we all been through it, and we've all had those stories. It seemed like the more you made, though, the more you lost. And there was no risk. There was no reward. It was just complete. I don't even know how to even explain it. It was such a dark, dark time.
So that's where I really want to focus right now on, because a lot of listeners have heard my story about my years of battling depression and surviving suicide attempts and things like that. What were you personally going through? And I know you and I talked about how deep your faith was, and you had a strong wife. But you personally, Frank, what were those days like? I mean, just getting out of bed.
I mean, when you find yourself having to shut down the business, number one, and you're responsible for employees, not only your family, you're responsible for your employees. You found out in your mind, you came to a point and you said, you know what, I'm going to have to shut the doors, close the business down. There's just no more cash flow. We can't keep this going. I hadn't even paid myself for 10 months, so the stress factor was off the charts when it came to the family and having them involved. But what happens is your body goes through unbelievable stress. I remember just vividly passing out, literally passed out in front of my partner at the business, and he didn't know what was going on, but I could hear everything going on around me, but I was out. And I was on the ground, and I was having a shock. Mm-hmm. And it was, the doctor said that I was lucky I didn't have a stroke. My blood sugar had skyrocketed. I was way overweight. I was 310 pounds, close to 305, 310 pounds. And I had just abused my body with all that stress, and it just hit me. This was 10 years ago, so I was about 40 years old, and I just remember waking up and thinking there's more to life than being thrown on the ground because my body can't take it. And it was a real big revelation for me, physically knowing that I couldn't go on with the stress, and I did have to go through with the decision of stopping the business. But there was many hard times down the road from there. You know, when you close a business up like that, you end up having a couple of years worth of drama. You know, the Department of Motor Vehicles to whatever might crop up. That you have to buy a vehicle back because you never got the vehicle registered in the first place, and it just missed getting registered with, the dust storm that hit. And before you know it, some lady is talking to the Department of Motor Vehicles inspector and saying, "Hey, you have to buy this car, or we're going to actually have to arrest you."
Right.
And you have to either buy it back, and you've got 24 hours, and so the pressure and the stress doesn't leave. And what does that do? It comes back to the family. And every single day I would tell myself, thank God for my family. And yes, I have a strong faith. And that was one of the things that carried me through. And yes, people were jumping out of windows, and doing crazy things. But I never had that thought. I never thought of suicide. I thought to myself, what am I going to do? How do I get out of this? I'm an entrepreneur. There's got to be something out there that I can, do to get us out of this. And one of the things was I'm not going to go into fetal position. I would tell myself every day, get on my knees and say, this is as close as fetal position as I'm going to get, in my closet, on my knees, praying to my God. And it was one of those things where you're on your knees, literally asking for an answer. And
but were you always like that? I mean, did you always have? Not just a strong faith, but that resilience of here's a situation.
I think it came from my upbringing. I really do. My father was a great role model. I grew up with him. He was an entrepreneur, and it was always a positive outlook that I grew up with. So. And that was one of the things that attracted my wife to me when we met young. We met very young. We've been married 27 years. She said to me one of the very first couple of weeks was, you're so positive all the time. Almost to the point where it can be irritating. Because,
really?
Because people just don't like all that positiveness. And when I was really young, I was very happy-go-lucky. I still am today, but...
Yes, you are, and I will vouch for that. In a great way, Fred. It really is. I mean, you have such great energy, and you really are fun to be around.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Tom, that I think that I developed over time, too. That a negative thought, believe it or not, it takes many more positive thoughts to get rid of that negative thought.
Exactly.
So I always thought, if I have more positive thoughts, then I don't have to worry about getting rid of that negative thought because I got a bank of positive thoughts. And so if that bank of positive thoughts is there, then I don't have to worry about having a negative thought. And so there I went. And that's how I went on the path in life, and it attracted my wife, and we had 4 beautiful children. And my bride of that many years has learned a lot of the positive things. And it's funny how even your wife, after so many years and being with them, and you're committed to that marriage, how they become a reflection, especially in those dark, deep times, when you're in those dark times. And she became that reflection to me. Mm-hmm. Here we were, looking at disaster, really, destitute. We got no house, we got no place, no boats, cars, everything's being repossessed. What are we going to do? Right? What are we going to do? And she's saying, as long as we have each other, we'll be fine.
But you did tell me, though, there was a little bit of separation.
Yeah, a lot of times it's hard to put this out there, right, into the world. And it can be embarrassing. And yes, there was a time that, things were just too much for my wife. And, the wife is the weaker vessel. You as a man, you're supposed to lift them up. You're supposed to fill them up, and you're supposed to support them. They want security in life. And this is what I learned going through this whole process, was the security in life that they're looking for in the man, to be their hero, right? And here I was, completely falling apart, had no financial way to support the family, yet she was supporting the family. And, when you find yourself where you can't afford a loaf of bread, and you have to start asking your mom, and you're a grown adult, and, it can be very humbling. And, pride sends out the window for me, but, it's a little bit different for the wife, and a lot of dynamics that were going on. And she had said, we got to this one morning, and it was, I want a divorce, the D word. We had never, ever heard it. We've never said it to one another. We've actually forbidden it, our conversations, up to that point. And when that came, it was such a shock. It really was such a shock. I never even thought of it.
What was her breaking point, though?
Well, I think really what it was is knowing that everything was being lost. And I believe that I wasn't being as sensitive as I should have been. I take responsibility for that, because there was a point where I was so much caught up in what was going on with me personally that I couldn't help her. And that's where I started, kind of explaining this in regards to lifting your wife up. Every day if you say, hey, honey, you look beautiful today, that has a huge effect. And as a matter of fact, jumping ahead 10 years from now, it has huge dividends. I'm here to tell you that. Because after 10 years of keeping this in mind and texting her every day, to this day, I will text her saying, I love you. Or, I wish I could give you a kiss. I might be traveling.
Right.
And, it'd be so nice to hold you. Those things, women, especially my wife, loves to hear. And she responds, and there's dividends down the road. But at the time, I was so caught up in what I had lost. And how was I ever going to recover? And how was I... you feel like you've failed your family. You failed, and your children are looking at you, and here you are supposed to be the patriarch, the family, and you're supposed to help the family, move on through a situation like this, but you can't. You're struggling emotionally, financially, spiritually, and you're struggling to a point that it's hard to describe. I've never had to describe it or put it out in the world for you. And Tom, it's kind of interesting that you asked me to do this, just because we were talking and we opened up. But when I sit and think about it like we are now, there really was a point that I realized when she asked me to leave, and that she wanted a divorce, I hadn't done my job as a husband. That was my first thought. I've had other conversations with other men that said, oh my gosh, I would have left her in a heartbeat. I would never went back. Well, that wasn't the commitment.
Right.
I got married because I love this woman. I had 4 children with this woman. She's my beautiful bride of all these years. I wouldn't think that way. I wouldn't allow myself to say, oh, she can't ever do that to me. It's always because of something that I'm doing as well. You've heard it, two-way street.
Right.
It takes 2 to tango. Well, that's what I thought. I thought, well, there's something in me that's not supporting her that allowed her. She just can't handle it. She just can't handle the stress. Yes, being an entrepreneur can be very stressful on a wife, and maybe there was also a lot of that in play, where it was, I had done 5 or 6 businesses that had failed. And then here it was, my ultimate business that was making tons of money, failed, and it was like, I just can't do this anymore, and so it was on both sides, and so I had to go through my 40 days of wilderness, and it was one of those moments in those 40 days that I realized I was happier with absolutely nothing washing every day at Jack in the Box with, trying to clean myself and having no water and having no electricity and just bringing it down to the very roots element of survival, right? And I had a few thoughts that I hung on to, and one was that I love my wife, I love my children, and that when she's not so angry, we'll get back together. And you can't help but be hopeful in those situations. As positive as I am, that's the way I thought, and it happened. She invited me back. I came in, and she never asked me to leave since. It's been 10 years. But, that fetal position, I can't emphasize enough. A lot of people would have given up in that situation. A lot of people I've talked to about this situation would have given up. They actually have told me there isn't a chance in hell I would ever go back to a woman like that. Well, you know what? I've got 10 years to share after the fact of unbelievable love and compassion, and the strength that we both have now has quantified because of what we've been through. So if you're willing to go through that pain and that suffering and come up with that positive attitude and make sure that you are leading and you are being the husband that God's put you here to be, that you are that person that is going to lead the family, there's rewards.
What I know you say you've talked to other men about this, but what about women? What?
It's funny.
What would you say to a woman whose husband is gone through? And I mean, I've gone through this very similar situation with you. I mean, God bless my wife too, that she stuck by my idiot business ideas. And what would you say to a woman whose husband is? My wife? Someone calls me flighty because I'm always looking for the next great idea.
Right.
And she still sticks by me.
Well, you and I it sounds like the same in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And she's the one that grounds me because here I am, the eagle, and there's been times in our lives where she'll let the eagle fly, and there's been times where she's putting him in the cage and saying, and that's okay because women have a better sense. I've learned that over 27 years of marriage that she has a better sense of what that security, of what to protect it, right? What she wants that hero, what she wants that man to do in order to protect it. One of the things that I've had conversations, we both travel, and you'll have a 2-hour conversation with someone, stranger sitting next to you. And I've had women sit next to me and they will, why do you think your wife stayed with you? And the only thing that I could ever come up with is the fact that I showed her love and compassion in the worst moment, right? As a man, I've seen men get angry and they get mean and they get vindictive. Well, guess what? There's nothing like a woman scorned.
It's true.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
You better not piss them off because life is not going to be easy for you. And I knew that, right? I knew that about all women, my wife in particular. I knew I'm not going to piss her off. And I'm going to make sure that I show her love and compassion and support. Go paint the wall and get $100 that day and give it to her. Right? Just give her the money because she needs it. She's got the kids. I can survive till tomorrow, and let's live day to day. But really, what it was is bringing the kill back to the wife again, and she recognized that in the darkest time. I was still true to her. And I showed her the love and the compassion by my actions, by my thoughts, by what I said, and how I carried myself. Even the tone in your voice. A man's voice, I learned in that time, becomes very powerful because of the emotions that are so high. you can say something to somebody in a tone, especially your wife, that will send her on a path that you had no idea that she was going on that path because of the tone that you had said to her in the way you had said it. A man's voice is very powerful.
Well, it's like the world of texting and email, because you don't know how the tone is
Right.
when you send it. You could be sending what you think is something funny, and you get a response back, why are you mad at me, or whatever the case may be.
True.
So, there was a question I wanted to ask you earlier, and that is, you said your dad was your mentor. So, what life lessons did he instill into you as you were going through this family crisis?
Well, one of the things he always said to me is, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. He did say that to me many times throughout my childhood. And he was the example. He worked for United Airlines as a welder. And he started up a business in the Napa Valley. It was called Napa Valley Ornamental Iron in the 70s. And he built all the gates for all those wineries up and down Highway 29.
Oh, really?
Many of you may even be driving through to the winery and seeing my father's gate. And that'll stand the test of time. And I realized at a very young age, 5, 6 years old, when he was accomplishing this. And he was telling me, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. If you stay positive, you can accomplish anything. And things were really tough to do back then, to start a business like that, through a yellow pages in a phone book type of, I mean, how are you going to advertise, right?
Yeah.
It was different times. It's not like you can explode in business now,
right,
and be a multimillionaire from the internet. Whereas then, you had to slowly build up your references, and you had to go from, next thing you knew, he was putting the gates all the way around the high school, and then everybody was asking him, who, did you do that? And the business kind of exploded into an artistic flow. And I remember Gates falling on him, and it broke his leg. He told me, nothing can stop you if you put your mind to it.
Right.
And here I was, 10 years old, trying to figure that out. So I did in life. And it was, if you put your mind to something, you can always accomplish it. Perfect example, we went to the moon. Right? He used to tell me that. You were born the year we landed on the moon, Frank. He'd say, you were born that year. He says, but if you were born in the 1900s, you would have thought that was a witch hunt.
Oh, yeah.
See, so there you have it. You put your mind to it, you can accomplish it, and it is the power of thought. They say it over and over, attitude is everything. It really is. I could give you example after example after example. I could talk to you all day long about how attitude was everything, and how this attitude that I had 10 years ago allowed me to get through what I was facing, and it was attitude.
So, what have you instilled in your kids? I mean, do they have that positive attitude as much as you do?
I believe so. I mean, I'm very proud of my 3 boys. My oldest is just got out of the fire academy, and he's going to be a fireman. He's actually driving ambulances around and getting more experience there. My middle son is in the Navy. He's an E5. He's only been 2 years. My youngest son is in San Diego State, and he's graduating this year in May. And I haven't given him a dime. I have not given him a dime. He's never asked for a dime. And he hasn't lived at home. And that tells you the work ethic that they have. And it's because, I really truly believe it's because of how we raise them, positive attitude, accomplish your goals, make them work for their goals. And then what we had to go through as a family, I don't wish on any other family, because there was dark times to the point where we couldn't eat. And I never thought I would be sitting here telling you this, but really what it came down to, I can remember just after Christmas of 2009, going into 2010, that there was a phone call that came to me, and it saved us. And it was an old friend who said, look, he says, if you're looking for a job, I can put you to work at a fireworks stand, TNT fireworks stand in Arizona, Lake Havasu. And I thought to myself, well, that's 4th of July. What's going on? And he said, they just came out with a new law. I'm taking a risk. I bought all the fireworks. I got 4 stands, one in Kingman, Arizona, one here, there. I could put you on Lake Havasu. It's supposed to, have the most people. I know you have family. If you want to bring your family, you can bring your family. A lot of families get involved with this. And it was like, bingo. Okay, that's how we're going to eat this week. Because we really had no idea how we were going to eat that week. And we had just come out of Christmas, and we had leftovers, and the family had come together, and everybody brings, food, and we were thankful for all that. But the family didn't even know how bad it was for us because of our pride. And we didn't want to reach out and say, hey, we need money for food. And so I looked at my wife, and I said, I got this phone call, and the first thing she said was, okay, well, let's go. We all strapped up. My son, at the time, my oldest, was 16, and his friend had a trailer, didn't have a heater, had a trailer, and we had a way to tow it, and we could stay in the trailer. Let's get the clothes, let's get our jackets, let's go. We got to be there tomorrow. So we went.
And this is, you all lived in Southern California?
Yeah, we live in Southern California, where it's 80 degrees all the time, maybe 70 at that time of year. And all of a sudden, we're in weather that's 20 degrees, and it's freezing cold at night, and the winds are 30, 40 miles an hour, and the tent blew open, and we wake up in the morning, the fireworks all over the parking lot.
And you're in a trailer that has no heat.
And it has no heat. And you can imagine 4 kids. My daughter at the time was 6. And my boys were 14 and 13. And the first thing I said to them this morning is, okay, guys, we got to get these fireworks back in the tent. A couple thousand of them all over the parking lot, or we're not going to sell anything. And if we don't sell anything, we're not eating today. Like, we can survive without having food today, but we definitely need water. We need water. That's the kind of conversation I had with my family. And they all went to work. And I was so impressed because the first thing my son said was, what's the most expensive box?
Because he wanted to sell that one, right?
He wanted to sell that one. This is the one graduating from San Diego State. And so he says to me, which one? That's the $500 box there. You can sell that one for $500. Well, it says $750 on it. Well, yeah, I'm giving you a $250 discount, so that way they're enticed to. So he went and he told the people he'd give it to them half price. It's normally $1,000, and he sold it. And we all had a great lunch, and we had an awesome dinner. And I remember telling my wife, here, take $100, go down to the hotel room. You guys check in. I'll stay at the lot and be security. You guys at least cycle through the bathroom or whatnot,
right.
Get, your showers. And so there we were. We were there for a week, from the 26th to the 6th, I think it was, of January, for almost 10 days. My friend, actually, his wife got pneumonia because it was so cold. She was in the hospital, and he couldn't attend that fireworks stand, which was the brother to the person who actually put this whole thing on, and all his money was at risk. And so I split it up. I said, okay, honey, you stay here. I'll go there. Son, come with me. And we worked our asses off. We worked our asses off that week like I've never done. And the whole family came together, and every single day we hustled as a family, as a group. We came together at the end of the day, and we said, hey, guess what? As a family, we made $300 today as a family. Here's 20 for you. Here's 20 for you. Mom and I have more bills, so we're going to actually take $250. And Sophia, daughter, you're already taken care of. You don't really need the cash right now. No, I'm okay. So we had that discussion of divvying up the money and what was fair. And it instilled such a work ethic that years later, about 4 years ago, I took them out to Denver. And I was doing a promotion for a car dealership. and I had them on the phones doing a script. Picking up the phone. Okay, so there's 20 salespeople in the dealership. They made more appointments, the two of them. Those two boys made more appointments in one day than 20 salespeople made in a whole week leading up to it.
And here's my theory. How old were they at the time?
19 and 20.
Okay. Because I've been reading a lot lately about kid entrepreneurs. And they have a total different mindset when it comes to failure. Because they haven't really experienced it. And they don't care about failure.
True.
Dumbass adults like us, we're afraid to fail. And this is why I want to, this is why I'm so passionate about wanting to speak with you, is because I think you and I, again, are very similar, is that it's okay to let our kids fail. And it's okay for them to learn to fail. And I really feel that at a certain age, you're like, I'm afraid to fail, or I'm not allowed to fail, and which isn't true. Really putting yourself out there, it's okay to fail. It's okay for your kids to see you fail. Your kids got to witness it firsthand, but at the same time, as a family unit, you all bootstrapped, you worked as a unit, you worked as a team. And when you're talking about putting the kids on the phones, they have nothing to lose.
That's right. It was funny because the general manager came up to me and goes, "What do you have them saying?" It was a script that I had given all those 20 salespeople.
The
same script. And he says, "How are they doing this?" And he was just mesmerized. He even told me, "I want them back next month. Let's just bring them back." And so they even had a little job with me, for a few months there. And, leading up to that point where we went and did the fireworks, kind of going backwards here and looking at that, there was many times, too, where I used to call him the stormtrooper. Mm-hmm. He was coming to take the car. The stormtrooper's here. Well, what does that mean? Well, they all just disappeared and hid because they're not to be seen, right? They knew the routine. Nobody's home.
So and stormtrooper meaning
the repossessed, the repo guy. Stormtrooper's here, and you try to make fun of it.
Yeah.
Hide.
Yeah.
All I have to say is stormtrooper, and he would show up pounding on the door, and nobody would answer, and he'd look in the windows, and he wouldn't see anybody because everybody's hiding.
Right.
And that was kind of the thing that we kind of did. We had to survive. They can't take our car. How are we going to get to work? How are we going to make ends meet again? Mm-hmm. And I remember one time in particular, I left my car out in the driveway, and stormtrooper came. My wife spoke to him and told him, "Well, my husband just went to the grocery store. He'll come back." Yes, it's a lie. It was a lie. But we had to get by. We had to do what we needed to do to survive. It was survival mode. And he said, "Okay, well, I'll be right back." He took off. He went down the street, waiting for me to come back from the grocery store. In that time, "Okay, boys, let's get the car in the garage." Well, you go out there, and he's got one of those big arms on the steering wheel.
Oh, like the club?
A club, there you go. And he's got the boot on the tire. And you're like, "Oh, boy, what are we going to do?" "Son, go to the neighbor, get the floor jack. Go over there, get his floor jack. Get a couple floor jacks." "What are you doing, Dad?" "Just go get them." So they come, like once again, everyone's in action, and we're working together, and we jack it up and roll it on the jacks into the garage. And at the time, the power got shut off, so the garage door didn't work, and we had to all pick the garage door up together and pull it back down. It wasn't even working. Power had been turned off. I mean, it was just one thing after another, and yes, was able to get to work the next day because I had a car, and we stuck it in the garage. So there you go.
What was the one thing that you really learned after all of the trials and tribulations?
Tom, it's funny you ask that because you hear it all the time. You really do. You hear that family means everything. And when you go through something like that, you can't emphasize enough truly how that is. Family means everything. And don't ever lose sight of that. Always know that you're loyal to your family, you're loyal to your kids. They are to you. And with all of that we went through, we realized we have nothing else but us. And we're the ones that we're going to have to make it in the world. And if there is a takeaway in a 40-minute conversation, that's what it would be. That's what it would be. You know, I want to thank you for pushing me, because this is something that, you know, it's inside, right? And you don't think that your story could help somebody else.
And I want to thank you, Frank, for sharing, because, you know, you didn't know me. I mean, this was what, on Tuesday?
Yeah.
And we're just sitting in that one office, just chit-chatting, and you're telling me your story. I'm like, oh my God. Because here's one of my pet peeves. When, especially on LinkedIn, when people look at my profile and say, oh, you have a podcast, and then they assume that because they have a story, they have to be on my podcast, and they've never listened to it, and it's not a good fit. But when I was listening to you, and I'm hearing, like I said earlier, I mean, you and I are cut from the same cloth, and I think our wives are as well, because there have been times where I said to my wife, I go, all right, here's my next business idea, and she just looks at me like, you're a freaking idiot. And then, like you were saying earlier, she grounds me too, going, all right, have you really thought of every little detail? Well, no, but it will work out. No, it didn't work out last time. Why would it work out this time? But again, just listening to you and talking about, you know, your kids. I mean, we got to mention your daughter. Can't forget your daughter.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Future Olympic hopeful.
Oh, you never know. You never know. This is one of the things that she reminds me of a Superwoman. You see that movie?
Yeah.
They're flipping around and doing all that stuff. I mean, she does stuff that you only see in a circus somewhere, you know. And she's been 10 years now focused on being a front and center flyer. And her high school won the National Cheer Championship, and she's gone, you know, to ESPN, Wide World of Sports, and done the world scene. And there's a work ethic there that's very instilled in her. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, it was like you're saying, and I think it's a guy thing. I really do. That we don't, and I was reading an article just yesterday about entrepreneurs who don't put their story out. And I again, just sitting there listening to you the other day, I'm just like, oh my, I have to record this. I have to record this. Because it's just, to me, as an outsider, just listening to you talk about, oh my gosh, this failing car business, and you had mentioned that you were living in the home that was for sale, but
it was short sold.
It was short sold.
But it fell through, and I went back to it because grace of God, it was open
exactly.
to me.
And it was like you said earlier, you weren't living under a bridge.
No.
I mean,
I wasn't.
But you still had a place to go.
I did.
And something else that popped in my head earlier when you were talking about your wife and why, in theory, she's still stuck with you. And the word that popped in my head was she still saw the potential in you. Even though, you know, you had these other businesses that failed.
You're a broken man.
Yeah, but you had this one business, this car business, that was doing well, and she saw it. And again, even though it all came crashing down, she stuck with you, selling fireworks.
Tom, that doesn't define one.
It doesn't
define one. But yes, she sees potential, but yet through all that potential, she saw where I stayed true. And I stayed true to her. No matter what her decision was in that point that we had come in that crossroad of I want a divorce. That's, I still stay true. It's very easy to go down the worldly path. And, I'm not an ugly guy. I've got a full head of teeth and I got a lot to offer, right? So,
Frank, if you and I were in prison together, I'd be your bitch.
Oh, man,
how's
there
that?
we go. That's funny. But, yeah, I mean, really, in retrospect, looking back at it, all these years later, and you pulled this out, and we'll probably go on and have a great friendship.
I hope so.
Because of something that we just did here for 40 minutes. But really, when it comes down to it, I hope that one person that's listening to this would grab a piece of that story and maybe change the outcome of their life.
Well, and that's why I found it was so important, because of you, as you said, you stayed positive the whole time. And there are many men, and I am going to pick on the men who find, oh my gosh, my whole world is crumbling down. I'm gonna go through that depression path. I'm gonna go take drugs. I'm gonna go do alcohol,
right.
or that self-destruction. But
right.
I just found you so amazing as you were talking about your story.
They need to man up.
Yeah,
they do. And if they truly want to be a man, and they want to fulfill that promise that's given to them. See, what'll happen is they need to lead. And in doing so, that's where the positive outlook comes. Because that positive outlook, I'll say it again, the woman being the lesser vessel, they have emotions, they're weaker, physically weaker. We're supposed to be the backbone of the family unit. And if we're not the backbone, then it falls apart. Everything falls apart. So you have to lead by example. And you have to show them through example in your thoughts and the way you operate day to day and how you treat your family. Are you yelling and scolding at your children? Or are you trying to guide them? Are you trying to lift them up? And those things that you say throughout the day are so critical, and I learned that. And not to drag this on, but it was really important in critical times that you would remember to tell your wife that you love her. It seems so simple, but you can go 3 or 4 days and not say, you know what, I love you. Because you're so caught up in what's going on. There's not a day in the last 10 years, you can call her right now, that I have not said, honey, I love you. Or have I told you today, I love you? Those are things that they need to hear. That it even reinforces in yourself as a person, as a man. So really, when I speak to you and the people that are listening, just remember all those positive things that you can say to your wife that can turn the course of your life around, rather than, how could she do this to me? It's not how she did it to you. You're actually part of the thing. You're part of the whole deal. You're actually creating why she's doing that to you. So you have the power. You have the power to change the direction of your family and the direction of how you're walking. No matter what she's thinking, if you call her first thing in the morning and the last thing at night, no matter where you are, you make sure before she wakes up or before she goes to bed, you're the last thing she hears, and it's a positive thing. You go to bed with that in mind. You watch what happens.
And I'm just going to piggyback on that, because no matter what time zone I'm in, I make sure that I'm up first, and I do send my wife a text of good morning.
Right.
And you're right. It really is, a powerful message that we just let them know, even though we're hundreds or thousands of miles away. Like in my first book, 25 Tips for Divorced Dads, one of the things I wrote in there, a tip for dads, for their kids who don't live, obviously, in the same household, let alone the same town, was I said, send a postcard to your kids. my son at 15 still has those early postcards.
Right.
So you're right.
Good.
Having that type of routine for your loved ones is just so important.
Yeah, you can't emphasize enough. Really, the takeaway as we're sitting here, and I'm getting to know your story more as you speak. It's fascinating. But you didn't have these conversations prior to 10 years ago. So I look at it like it's a major positive thing for our society to sit and have these belly-to-belly conversations and have these types of conversations that are deep and meaningful and could positively affect a family, affect somebody's outcome in life. Because 10 years ago, prior to this, I never had these conversations. I don't know if you did. Maybe this is the path you've been on, but because of what we've been through and the way that this whole thing collapsed, it rocked everybody's core. And so then that allowed us to reach out to another human being and to talk to one another. I would have never spoke about this or anything. You've got a very welcoming soul about you and the way you are. You're very open. And so, I shared my story because I
think it's the ties, Frank.
It's the ties. It's definitely
the ties.
The Looney Tunes today, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But so it really, that heart-to-heart, belly-to-belly conversation that I think is important because it does take an army to raise a family, I've learned. And as a man, to open up, you have to learn those skills as an adult. And I still learn every day. And just going through this process of speaking to your listeners, I believe that I've done some work internally as well. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thanks for letting me do this, Frank. I greatly appreciate it, and it's just been an honor. And again, the other day, like I said, you didn't know me from anyone. It was only barely our first day meeting each other, and you were just so open. And I was like I said, I had to record it, and I went back to the hotel. I'm like, I have to do this. I just because, like you said, there's your message out there that can help so many families, but I look at it from a man point of view that there's so many men out there that need to hear your story and how you went from literally the top of the mountain down, but you got yourself back up, and there are so many men out there who unfortunately don't get back up.
Well, there's the proverbial fight, isn't it?
It is. Well, Frank, thanks for your time.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to hearing what we came up with.
Me too.